how I make friends. I have to say, hi, my name's Sherry, who's yours?
You're listening to the Esoteric Podcast, where you don't have to be a Derek fan, but it sure does help.
And we're back with part 2 of the Shawnessey Cargile podcast.
Now it's my podcast.
It's my podcast because the intro that you didn't hear just played. So now we're back.
What did the intro say?
Oh.
I mean, you said it's the Shawnessey Cargile podcast, it sounds like. I thought it was the Esoteric podcast.
It is the Esoteric podcast. But it's episode 2, I guess, technically, since the first one we did was not a real podcast.
And then when you had a real guest on, that was episode 1.
Yes, which was supposed to be you, but I was unable to schedule with you until I had to bribe you with some quid pro quo.
That was not sketchy. I usually mean sketchy things, but it was not sketchy.
Yeah.
And you've been busy doing a variety of projects, apparently. Is there any kind of project that you'll be like, no, I can't do that?
I'm sure there is, but
Like home renovation repair, yeah, I guess I'll do that. Install a mirror, yeah, I'll do that. Install some lights, yeah, I'll figure out how to do that. Put a trellis on the back porch, yeah, I'll do that. Plant 40 flowers, yeah, I'll do that. Oh, no, there were no rose bushes.
I'm not a fan of roses.
Oh, okay. I mean, just like put a geranium in. I don't know, there's just all these things that you've like built and made and...
Yeah, I mean, it helps that I don't have a real job. I have multiple jobs that I do, but I can kind of bury my head in the sand and kind of just, I don't know, today I feel like gardening, so I'm just going to garden today and not, I don't know. Usually, if I can garden in the morning and then I'll just get my work done in the evening, or I'll stay in bed all day and do my work and then wake up and do some gardening or whatever. So yeah, we're gonna try to keep this podcast a little shorter.
I have so many questions about you
than last time because
bizarre ways.
The first podcast was supposed to be me learning how to podcast, but then we ended up just talking about your travels and the Beatles and Scotland or Ireland. I still can forget.
I went to both. The only
Both.
time I've
Okay.
ever done any kind of international travel. So we talked about a little bit of both. Or both, not both. Both.
So I do have still the second half of the list of my questions from last time, and then I've listened to our podcast like 10 times as I was editing it, and I've had some questions come in.
And still wanted to do a part 2.
Yes.
I figured if you listen to it more than once, you'd be like, this was a mistake.
Well, I was hoping to use this to build a foundation for future podcasts. So I have just a lot of questions about podcasting, but I need to get one Beatles question out of the way first.
Ooh, okay.
And I don't think I asked you this before. I may go back to some questions I already asked, but it's been like 6 months since we had our first podcast.
It's not been that long. That's an exaggeration, but...
Is Halter, Skelter the best Beatles song? The answer is yes.
No. You could have phrased that as, why is Halter, Skelter the best Beatles song? It's not the best Beatles song. It's a good song, but it's not the best. In fact, I have a growing appreciation in the last few months for Glass Onion.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, that's a song. It's
Okay.
a Beatles song.
I told you about so many videos, you know that nothing's real. Well, here's another basic download. Where would you follow? Look to the back to it. See how you have it. Look to the thunder. I told you about the horse and man. You know the bear supposed to be man. Well, here's another goofy roll. The horse is fault. Standing on the thunder. They ain't nothing against me yet. Look to the thunder. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look to the thunder. I told you about the food on the hill. Tell you how you live in the hill. Well, here's another thing to me. Listen to me. There's another hole in the ocean. I make the tail thunder. Look to the thunder.
There's some contextual clues there to what we're talking about, but Glass Onion, you have to look that one up.
Okay.
It's a good one.
I'll have a look.
'Cause it's later on in the catalog, but they make reference to earlier on things, songs, and like rumors about the band, kind of hidden within this Glass Onion song. It's a good one. It's a jam. Why Helter Skelter for
I'll have a
you?
look. Well, that's the song that Manson murdered all of his victims to.
So it must be great.
Must be powerful. Something.
There you go.
But I actually want to back up a little bit because I had to get you here by calling quid pro quo like Hannibal would do, because you needed me to take over for you for Miracle League.
Yeah, did you practice with the guys and girls before you went out there?
No, I just struck them all out.
No practice, just, okay.
But what I realized is on our last podcast, we mentioned Miracle League. It's one of the coolest things we do.
Yeah.
But we never really explained what that is, how I got into it, and how I may end up with a second team.
You're going to take over my team now?
Well, so what is Miracle League?
I was gone 1 week, okay? Just one Sabbath, that's all. I just missed one. Miracle League is flippin' awesome, is what it is. But in a basic gist, Miracle League is a T-ball / slow pitch softball league for not just children. It can be adults too, but for individuals, tends to be mostly children that sign up. But for individuals with a variety of disabilities. And so the field is flat. There's no bases that are raised, so anyone can walk on it, can use a roller, can use wheelchair. If someone is visually impaired, they're not going to trip the bases. There's no grass. It's all like turf. Everyone bats. Everyone can have a buddy if they so choose, so someone who kind of plays the game with them, which is very helpful if someone might be visually impaired or may have something else that would make it difficult just to go out on the field by themselves. And so I think that's the first exposure maybe you had, was that you came and like were a buddy?
I feel like I was just thrown in as a head coach, or you invited me. Maybe I was a buddy. I didn't realize. I probably didn't realize what I was. I do have a buddy shirt, so it must have been.
Yeah.
But I feel like you threw me in right away, and I was pitching immediately.
Yeah.
And then I was telling someone about it just like a day or two ago, and I said, yeah, my friend got me into this, and he's busy, so I ended up basically
taking over his team. Is what
getting
you're
his team. I definitely.
Can we drink these, by the way?
Yeah.
Like
so
25 beers.
We have a nice variety of drinks here.
Oh, pink
I've actually
grapefruit
been
sparkling
saving
water.
these. I don't know if you're interested in that. I've been saving that one for you for this very podcast.
Okay, what is this? Suntory All Free.
Crisp and light refreshment, sparkling malt and hops beverage from Japan. One of the things Youngin told me to stop doing is this. She said it's unprofessional to be drinking, to be having that noise.
Oh, it's great. It just adds to the realness, right?
She listened to our podcast and laughed like 7 times, and at least 7 times said, "You can't say that." Like when I said, like, "What's up with your name?" She's like, "You can't say that."
It's not rude.
Okay,
and this is alcohol free.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, non-alcoholic. Okay.
I found this at a Korean market in Atlanta. I tried saving all 4, but I drank 2. But at least we each have one.
I like it. This is good.
But back to Miracle League. I was telling a friend about the other day, and I said, yeah, so I called myself like assistant head coach to you.
You were really the assistant to the head coach initially.
Yes.
And we were supposed to co-coach because you moved up the ranks.
I did, and then you
And then
disappeared.
this season, you coached a couple times when I was gone, which was a big deal. Like when I was gone to Ireland last year, you coached for me, which was super helpful. And then we get to this season, and you just have your own team, and we're not co-coaching. You're not even the assistant to the head coach. You're just a coach.
I am. But I'm also a little concerned that I may end up with 2 teams if that happens again.
I'm not leaving my team.
But I really enjoy it. I do. Like, I miss some of the kids. Like, you have half of the kids I had last time.
You just miss some of them. Like, some of them, I don't really care.
Well,
That's all
I mean,
bonus.
yeah,
I mean, that's
some
normal.
kids just don't. They're having fun, but they don't really connect. And other kids you connect with really well. And I guess the kids can request a certain coach. So maybe some requested you, and then some requested me.
And maybe some didn't know what our names were, and they're like, I don't know, it's a white guy. And so they got one of us.
The short one, the bald one,
Yeah.
the beard one.
That's all they could remember, which happens to me in all forms of life. So
But it is really fun. I enjoy it a lot. It's really hard to pitch to a kid in a wheelchair because their strike zone is so small. You almost have to. I try to hit their bat, or usually, rarely do they get a hit their first try. So I try to
You should
pinpoint.
pitch better.
I do my best. I try to pinpoint where that swing was, and I try to get the next ball right where that was. And then I've noticed some of the coaches stand really, really close for all the kids. And that doesn't work for all. I mean, some kids you need to get close because of the way they swing. But some of them you need to stand back. I mean, we never stand at the mound. That's way too far.
Yeah.
But you need to stand back because they need that amount of time to register it and then be able to swing, get the bat around. The other thing I've been trying to do is when I first got there, the kids would go an entire game without ever touching the ball. So what I try to do for the other teams,
I love this thing that you do. I've started doing this too.
I'll explain since people don't know. I try to have 9 balls in my hands, 10 balls in my hands at all times. Don't make a joke.
That's weird. That's inappropriate.
And every time the balls hit, I'll try to roll it to all of them. Sometimes it delays the game, but at least then the kids are always engaged. And then we have a couple of blind kids. They don't know if it actually came or not, but at least they're every single, or at least every other inning, or no, at bat, they're going to at least touch the ball. So I feel like that's been, I'm really proud of doing that. And I hope it catches on with more coaches.
I think
because it's man, I was just watching, these kids are standing in the hot sun, and especially the blind kids that, they're just imagining what's happening, I guess. But then if they're, touching the ball every single time, you have a girl, Brittany, on your team that I had last year, and her dad's always out there. And what I noticed, I had never seen him do before. Now she's got her cane, what's it called? Is it a cane? The thing pole kind of?
Yeah.
So now she runs with that, and he calls to her.
Yeah.
And then when she goes to throw the ball, I let her know where I'm at. So that's just really cool. And then sometimes the kids are completely unable to hold a bat, so then someone will hit for them, and they're still smiling and having a great time. And I've got one kid, I think he's just ADHD. He seems fine, but he's just all over the place. And he's one of my favorites. You
guys really bonded.
The first season, me and him hit it off because he would just run, and then he'd lay down and take a nap for 10 seconds, and then he'd wake up. He just could charge his batteries really quick and just keep running. But anyway, Saturday morning.
What you described as your routine. You're sometimes I just lay in bed all morning working. This is what you said. Sometimes I just lay in bed all morning working, then I wake up and go out and garden.
Yeah, I'll have coffee sometimes, different times of the day.
Lay in bed working, and then I wake up. So I don't know how all those things fit together, but yes, I could see why you guys would have bonded with him taking these miniature cat naps and then just running all over the field.
Yeah, he was the first kid I've been doing it for I think 3 or 4, maybe 4 years now. I know it's 3 for sure. It might be 4 when I first started coming, and he was the first kid I just hung out with, and he was fun just because he kept moving. But anyway, Saturday mornings, the first game's at 9?
9.
And then a game at 10, and then a game at 11. Mm-hmm. It's down at 12. And it's
fun to even just come and watch and cheer.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is there's the girls' leagues are on same park but different diamonds over, and when they all come at the end of their practices and they cheer, that's a lot of fun. And then the Chattanooga Lookouts, Alex Tanish, he's the announcer. All the kids have their walkout song,
have their own walkout music, announces when people are coming around the bases, when this kid's about to score, when this kid comes up to bat. There's a lot of personalized shout-outs.
Yeah, it's really good. And this year they have water bottles and snacks. And the water bottles, man, came in really handy. I think the YMCA is the one who does they're over the whole thing. But whoever's idea that was, because it was so hot, I try not to take from the kids, but I was like, I gotta get
Sometimes you just got to take from them.
water bottle too. It was hot too. It was high 80s, not a cloud in the sky, and I was just drenched in sweat. Plus, I'm like running around, and even like one of the dads complimented me and said he enjoys watching me more than anything because I'm just trying to like keep the kids entertained.
There was a game. It might have been when I went to Ireland. I don't know. I missed a game. More like one. Okay, you weren't like all on your own last year. Don't make it sound that way. But I missed a game for the fall league because right now we're technically in spring league.
Mm-hmm.
Go spring and fall, spring, fall, spring, fall. And so I missed a game, and when I came back, you're telling me like, okay, so and so, I use this hand sign for this and that, because she's deaf, but so I use this hand sign and this, and I learned this one. I looked this one up. Then for her, she likes a low pitch. I pitch this one low. Now for him, I get on this side. We make eye contact. Then you tell me like all these like individualized little like ways that you had learned on the fly the week before in the hour-long game. Of all these different ways to like make the game a little bit more accessible for each one, how to connect with them a little bit more, and this person has this person has this. Like, how'd you do a scouting report on our team in an hour? I mean, granted, I already knew all those things. I'd already been doing them
Perfectly.
I was like, what the heck? I was like, this is impressive. Like, Derek's not really good with kids, but then all of a sudden comes to the Miracle League and is amazing and should be a dad. So that's all I got to say.
It's funny
Just throwing
because
that out there.
I'm intimidated. What I realized just in the last week, I'm intimidated by adults, especially multiple adults. One-on-one, I'm pretty fine.
Yeah.
But kids don't intimidate me at all. So a crowd of
Oh,
adults,
you could totally take him.
I'll
You could
freak
beat
out.
up. Throw down on a kid, man. No intimidation. Like, there's a little different social anxiety, even?
I don't
or-
have any with kids, and I think
Yeah.
that's why I like to be around kids, because I'm not intimidated. I don't know why I'm intimidated by adults, but maybe because they're bigger than me. Adults are bigger than me, and children are smaller.
Well, we have some bigger adults in the league, too.
Yeah.
There, I've got... there's at least 2 adults on my team who are bigger than you, who could definitely take you. So...
My guy Romeo is real into wrestling. He's a month younger than I am, but we're both 36.
Okay.
I think I'm 36.
I think he might
I
even
lost
be
it.
involved with one of the local ones. I saw something that he was sharing like on his Facebook page. I was like, I'm going to show up to one of these local matches and see if he's there and he's like involved in it, or he just goes to it. Either way, I just want to show up. Speaking of that, because I saw you when you were gone on one of your weekly vacations.
Yeah.
You and Youngin traveled 8 to 10 times internationally a year. Amazing. Because it's nice to sleep all day and then get up and garden and then go take international trips. On one of those, you're like on top of some famous mountain peak, or you're somewhere, but you're wearing like a WWE championship belt. So it's like, is Derek a closet wrestling fan?
I loved wrestling so much when I was a kid. In fact, I've got a figure of Jake the Snake Roberts right there
Oh, I see
in my
it.
in
Yeah,
my
the
room.
pop.
So I collect Funkos. We're in my
Funkos.
bedroom right now, and I've got way too many Funkos.
This is your bedroom?
Well, we each have this is a 3-bedroom house. We have our sleeping bedroom, and then we each have our own rooms. Because I'm young and is
This is
clean. I'm a clean freak.
Yeah.
So the idea was I could close her door and be happy. I can go into my room, close my door, and be happy. But
Wait, you're a clean freak? I'm in your room of the 3 rooms, the one that you don't share with her. I'm not going to describe. I'm looking around, and you're a clean freak?
well, I've been cleaning all day. This is a pile of folded clothes and
Okay.
miscellaneous. So everything in the house is clean except for this. This is the next
Oh,
big
okay.
pile.
Alright.
But then you texted me. I'm
I'm not judging, but if you're going to say
I
I'm
forgot
a
about the
clean freak,
podcast.
then you got a Smokey the Bear hat. So anyway, yeah, you're you're an uncloseted wrestling fan, but not so much now.
Not so much now, but I think you're the only person I know that's been to a local wrestling match, and
Yeah.
I want to go to one so bad.
Okay, we'll talk and figure out a time. There's one in Rossville. I didn't know there's one in Rossville.
That's the one that I.
There's one
we
in
talked
Red Bank.
about.
I've been to the one in Red Bank. It was entertaining. It was fun. Saw a couple people that I knew, and it was probably, this is like February of 2020. So it's right before everything shut down. And there were, I think I counted, about 150 people crammed into this one little place over in Red Bank. You know, pretty good little energy.
That's
I
awesome.
love wrestling though. I'm more like the WWE, AEW, old school WCW back in the day, NWA, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I love wrestling. I saw you with that belt on. I was like, look at this guy. Anyway, I thought of that because of this guy Romeo, who's your age, just a few years younger than me, who plays in the league also. One of my buddies, Cecil, plays in the league, who I had met 5-6 years ago. Or maybe
Is
longer
he
than
still?
that.
I haven't seen him for a long time.
Cecil hasn't been playing the last couple seasons. He still works for the Y.
Right.
But Cecil now, I mean, it's amazing.
What's his Instagram? He's got a really good.
Cecil's Adventure, or The Adventures of Cecil.
Yeah.
The Adventures of Cecil, Cecil. So Cecil was not, maybe he was in high school, but he had an accident when he was 18, 19, and caused some difficulties then from there on out, physically, mentally. Very, very sharp guy, had some limitations with his mobility, and about 5-6 years ago, after dealing with this condition for probably 13 years, was like, that's it. I'm going to start doing adventures. And so started to participate in the cycling, the adaptive cycling that you kind of do as like your, not laying down, but it's like the cycling that's
like reclined kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reclined kind of cycling. And started getting into that. Oh, pretty cool. And then started getting into climbing. And this is pretty amazing because he would walk with a walker,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a labored system for him. And now he's climbing, and they're helping him with the belay and all that kind of stuff. And then pretty soon he's getting to where he's climbing the wall pretty well independently. And then he's doing swimming, and then he's doing triathlons, and he did another triathlon, and now that's a thing. And he's gotten, I don't know, he's just done a variety of adaptive sports, and now he's an adaptive sport athlete. It's just amazing because these are not things that he was doing for 12, 13 years after his accident.
Mm-hmm.
And that he didn't think he could do, and it's pretty awesome. So yeah, now we don't see him. He's
Outgrown Miracle
He's
League.
outgrown the Miracle League for us. But yeah, The Adventures of Cecil on Instagram, man, it's awesome. And Cecil's a great guy too. So that's one of my buddies that takes part in the league.
I want to ask you more questions about podcasting. So as I have listened to my own podcasts, I've seen a lot of the mistakes. I already know the mistakes that I make.
Yeah.
One of the things is I don't complete thoughts. I'll once I realize that you recognize what I'm talking about, I'll just stop. And then we're like, oh yeah, and then I don't really finish thoughts. So that's something I know that I'm gonna work on.
Okay.
One question I have for you is what do you think, or what's your balance, or have you thought about the balance of how much you want to be talking versus how much you want a guest to be talking? I feel if a guest is there, they should be doing most of the talking, or it should be 50-50. Have you thought about that at all with your guests?
Yes. Jason is oblivious to all those things, mostly because he's unaware of other people. Bless his heart. And so when it's me and him, I know that I'm taking on the role of basically an interviewer because he's not going to ever ask me a return question.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of all right, it's going to be about 25-75. I'm going to set him up to really share the stories. I'm going to ask him questions to keep it going. And then when he says something stupid, then I can kind of call them out. Then when we bring on a third, or sometimes even we've had two people, so we've had a third and fourth person, then I try to take the role of okay, I'm going to help facilitate. So yeah, definitely have the guest do more, and then when Jason starts to overshadow them, shut Jason down like this publicly, and then engage that guest, because that's just kind of a special thing anyway, to have somebody else sharing. And we've had very specific topics that we wanted someone to come on. We had our friend Willis, who's a black police officer in the South, kind of stood out to me in general, but also stood out to us in August of 2020, and especially after he had worked a couple of protests.
Mm-hmm.
And his experience. So it was all right, we're gonna bring him on to interview him and ask him the questions, and occasionally give here's what I'm thinking, but what is it from your perspective? So I bet that three-fourths of it I want him to or them or whoever the person is to be the one talking.
Yeah, I've thought about that. I mean, it should be at least 50-50, I would think. But when you have 4 people on, that's like... I mean, you almost have to have some people take a back seat, and then...
We did one where we joined a friend of Jason's, and it's one who I got to know over the years too, but initially it was one of Jason's boys that he used to work with. They do, every other Tuesday, they have the Boymanship, Boymanship, the Boymanship podcast. So it's recorded, but then they'll also go Facebook Live and do it. And these guys all live in different areas of the country. They all went to school with each other, have stayed friends. So there will be 5 of them. And then Jason and I joined, so there was 7 of us. And so we're all like in little like Hollywood Square kind of things. You can see everybody going on. That was pretty interesting. It worked. But at first I was like, oh, this is going to be a train wreck. I don't know when to talk, when not to talk. But thankfully there was a person who like led the conversation, mostly facilitated asking things, and then kind of guided people back.
With your podcast, do you think there's one of you that has kind of become the leader or like the main voice, and then everyone else is like, or does that not matter?
Oh, well, it matters. I'm the only one that cares. Jason's mostly indifferent to it, so I get to be like, how about now? Can we record now? How about now? Can we do it now? How about this? And he will bring some topics every now and then too, which, granted, he has a wife and a child. I have no humans to keep alive, so easier for me to take the lead on it in all ways.
Can't remember. I know I asked you some of the questions, and then the last podcast we did, we lost
These are
the
good,
last
by the way.
5 minutes. Yeah,
All free.
All free by Suntory, the sponsor of the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Suntory.
What do you think about podcast sponsors?
Hey, they're awesome.
Do you have any?
No. So Jason and I were just going to start saying like, hey, sponsored this week by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Chattanooga, and then just start tagging them in everything that we post.
You're going to get a cease and desist.
Yeah, hopefully if it was like a negative thing, at least it would be some kind of press and people would listen.
Yeah.
So then we could show someone like, hey, we got a lot of listeners last week.
Do you know any words in Japanese? Because maybe...
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Well, this is a product of Japan, but it's bottled or canned in Los Angeles, so they probably speak English. But 0 calories.
Yeah, 0 calories. I mean, I like it. It tastes good.
So, did I ask you...
So
in
who
the
would
last
sponsor
one,
you? Like Home Depot? Or, I mean, where you tend... I'm guessing
I
you
don't
buy a
use
lot
Home
of stuff.
Depot.
Oh, no, you
I
don't.
only use Lowe's. Home Depot's colors are ugly.
Colors of the build?
The orange and white I don't like, but the blue and white I like. Of Lowe's, I don't like. I purposely don't go to Home Depot because
of their
colors.
color scheme. So you kind of don't trust their products based on their colors, or you
I just don't like going into places all orange and yellow, or orange and white.
Right. No, that makes
Also, it's extra 2 blocks farther away.
right.
So
You don't got time for that extra
the
walk.
one by the mall.
Yeah, that makes.
They do have better flooring. Home Depot does.
Like the actual floor you walk on when you go in, or the flooring that you buy.
The flooring that you can buy. They have a better selection. So if I'm going for flooring, that's the only time. They also, Home Depot never has sales on plants. And Lowe's always has sales on
Come on.
plants.
How do you know? You don't go there. How do you know if they don't
Well,
have sales?
I go to the garden section, but I don't go inside.
Because that's where all the orange and white.
I can avoid the orange and white if I only go to the garden section, the far right, and never go in the actual building.
Did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were a kid?
I was dropped on my head a few times.
Yeah, which is okay. It happens.
We did establish that I'm very neurotic.
Well, yes. There's other names you could add for this podcast.
Are there any common podcast mistakes that you see other podcasters make, or what are some mistakes that you made early on that you've straightened out? Is there anything that you can think of?
Including a co-host. That was the biggest mistake, probably, because then I had to depend on them to get stuff done. But that also makes the podcast more interesting, so I guess that's really not a bad thing. I think my problem is not testing things before just saying, okay, good, we're just going to record and this will be the good recording. So like what you did before, we talked for a few minutes and you stopped and kind of just played it back. Very basic, just to see like, all right, is the microphone picking up okay? I would get into kind of a rush, like, all right, let's just go. And then not realize, like, oh, somehow the setting that I hit when I hit record is only recording out of the left channel when you play it back. So if you have like headphones in, you only hear it out of one side, the other side's totally dead, and so the sound is thrown off. And those are things that if I wasn't just like, let's just go, let's just do it, come on, we just got to do it, I probably could have figured that out a little better. So that has improved over time. Sound quality, for sure, was something. And then we kind of, not regimented, but more like scheduled, almost like my thought was This American Life podcast. Here's a theme, here's our 5 acts. It's going to go very strategically. We're going to keep it within a certain amount of time.
That's one of the things I wanted to ask you is, like, do you have a template for how, like, do you have, like, have you thought that out? How long each podcast is going to be, and then what each segment would be within that?
Initially, and so we did kind of hold to the idea of, like, okay, in general, an hour. That's what, in the market research we did, which was basically a Facebook post and asked people to respond. And, I don't know, 30 people responded or something.
30? And I haven't had one person tell me they even listened to my podcast.
Well, this is before. Jay Steinish made a little video saying, hey, we're going to do a podcast, and what do people like in their podcasts? Just to kind of get an idea. And it seemed like more people that responded were like in the vein of, oh, the podcasts I listened to are all like an hour to 2 hours. I was like, hour to 2 hours? Dang, people would actually sit and listen that long? Granted, they're listening to things they like. But there was more of those than there were like 10 or 15 minutes or 20 or 30 minutes. So our thought was, right, let's try to do at least an hour. And then at one point the idea was to be really like structured. And then it was like, that's just not as much fun. So granted, probably more people would listen if they knew, oh, if I listen to this, the Normal Life podcast, and it's about this theme, these guys are really going to stay on a theme and I'll want to stay engaged. But that's not our personalities. When Jason and I started talking, there's a theme we're going to come back to, but then it spins off into random things that are more like a Seinfeld episode. But that was more enjoyable for he and I personally to do.
Yeah.
So then our motivation to actually meet week in and week out went up. So it's like, all right, if we're actually going to be motivated to meet and actually do it, it's mostly just for fun anyway, let's do what we actually enjoy while still having some theme each week, having multiple themes that could be interesting to people. Or eventually it got to like, okay, these themes actually match up with things we're seeing happening around us that we just feel like it might be interesting to talk about. And then we'll go back to just random themes. But yeah, I thought having a theme, keeping it to an hour, and we won't get as many listeners, but it'll be a little more random just because that's kind of how we talk, and I think we enjoy it, so
Yeah.
not the best strategy for gaining people, though.
So I was talking to one of my friends, and I was talking to Leif actually, and I want him to be my next guest, and he was telling me something that I'll bring out more with him. Is someone that he listens to said that he thought about like what would keep him going in a podcast. Like if he knew he wanted to do a podcast, but he knew there were certain things if he got too into, he wouldn't want to do it anymore, and editing was one of them. The podcast I did with you, I did very little editing. And then the second podcast that I did with Mark, I did a ton of editing. One, because I talked too much and said dumb stuff. But also, we talked about some really sensitive topics. So I had to bleep some stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you clearly haven't listened to it. But it was really,
bleep stuff?
really good.
Like actually bleeped it?
Yes.
Okay.
Because afterwards we talked, but it's like, I shouldn't have said that. Like, some legal things that he wasn't able to say. He was a professor of photography at Andrews and is no longer. And so legally he was not able to say some things.
Okay, gotcha.
So I went back and I bleeped it. It's goofy. How does your podcast start? So you have an intro, and then what's the hardest part I'm having with my podcast is like I roll the intro. I have an intro now, a really good one. My friend Andrew Osano helped me with.
Okay.
I hired multiple professional voiceover artists to read the intro. Once the intro rolls, how do you start your podcast?
You hired multiple voiceover actors to record the intro.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Then I just chose the best one. They were relatively cheap. I think I paid one guy $25, and he ended up not even being the best one. But it's kind of hard. They don't really give you I mean, I wish for Pathfinder Films where I work, we have a program. It's a minimum of $350, but they'll send you samples, and then if you choose it, they get paid the minimum. I used Fiverr, and they won't send you a sample of it, so you just kind of have to guess. I didn't want to pay $350, so I ended up hiring like 3 different guys. One was like $10, one was like $25, and one was somewhere in between. Because I had to guess just based on their voice. And so, yeah, the question is, once it rolls, how do you start your podcast?
Most of the time, it's, all right, welcome back into another like a very official introduction. After giving, our introduction is always like a little teaser. So it's a random clip that I try to catch. Ooh, that's so unprofessional.
The youngin's going to roll her eyes.
It's some kind of like random thing that I think is just quirky or funny or just embarrasses Jason. I usually try to go for that, 30 seconds of that, and then the intro song comes in, and then we, the welcome. Hey, welcome into another episode, blah, blah, blah. And then we just kind of check in with each other for a few minutes, is the goal normally. About 5 minutes of just to check in, how's it been going, blah, 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 blah. Let's get into the topic for today, or the multiple topics for the day. It's kind of hard to do sometimes, so we just kind of get off.
It's been the hardest part for me. Like, of all the podcasting, starting is where I'm never sure where to start from. Like,
it just feels awkward.
You guys don't play the intro and then start into it. You just start into
add
it.
it in later, yeah.
Because I've kind of wondered if I should, if I played it with me and the guest, and then I just cut that part out and then start, if that would make more sense, or I just find a place to start and I start.
Yeah.
Did we talk about in the last...
just make it really awkward. Like, that should be your thing. Well, the first few minutes are just going to be really disjointed and awkward. And then that's like the thing, like, I wonder how this week's is going to start off.
I don't think I need to try to do that. I think it's going to come naturally.
That's the beauty, yeah. Just get a room full of adults to be around you while you're recording, so you'll feel the social anxiety, and then the awkwardness will take over, and it'll be more memorable.
Well, then I would just start texting, and it would be a really long silence. When we talked last, did you know, had I told you what the name of the podcast was at that point?
We talked about it in the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, you haven't listened to it enough. We literally talked about it. And you came up with
it's been a good solid 3 months since we got together.
Those ginger chips were so good. I thought we'd have some today. But
it
was nice of you to have
had them out, but
cooler full of cold.
We got our Suntory All Free, some Liquid Death, and some fake LaCroix.
I don't even know. Is Liquid Death a sparkling water?
Yes.
Okay.
This one is non-sparkling water.
It's just water.
My wife can't burp, so I got her... These are left over from a Christmas present just for fun.
What? Huh?
She can't burp, so...
Like physiologically or just out of principle?
Physiologically.
Okay.
So Liquid Death makes... they make a bunch of different stuff now, but they make sparkling and non-sparkling canned water from the Alps, and this one was the non-sparkling version, so it just tastes like water. Rusty water.
Okay. I like it, though. I don't want to be burping.
I think we talked about kind of my vision for the podcast, and that's where I kind of want to... It's a podcast about me. The intro, as everyone has already heard, is you don't have to be a Derek fan, but it sure does help. You have not heard right? You have not heard the intro?
I haven't heard this new polished version, no.
Okay, so we'll listen to it afterwards. It'll take me a minute to find it now, but I got a free song, mixed it in with some. I
thought you were gonna make up your own song.
Well, I got a song from a free song site.
Okay.
It starts with me as in my first day of first grade, and then it's the song, and then it goes into the intro. You're now listening to the Essa Derek podcast, where you don't have to be a Derek fan, but it sure does help. And then
it starts off with you in first grade. This is a lot of layers to this.
So I had to. It's actually funny. I guess story worth talking about is I had to go on Amazon. I pay $140 something to buy this machine that you hook up to an old camcorder or a VCR, and it'll convert old VHS tapes into digital. So I bought it, sent it to my mom, had to have her find an old tape because I knew there was one. So my mom says, "How do you make friends, Derek?" And I say, "My name's Derek, who's yours?" So I thought that'd be like just a funny way to start the podcast. Like that was one of the first things I knew I wanted to do was get a hold of this audio bite.
That's a very specific one.
Yes.
Yeah.
"Hi, my name's Derek, who's yours?"
That's a good way to start.
So yeah, I got a hold of it and I wanted that, and so I've got a really polished
Now, do you still
intro.
do that now?
Well,
Hi,
yeah.
I'm Derek. Who's yours?
Yes.
Okay. Works better with kids as opposed to adults.
Yeah, they get
Yeah.
it more.
Yeah.
So you have intro and outro music on yours?
Yeah, same song that we wrote. That Jason and I came up with. Actually, I'll give him credit. Everything else we talked about is mostly giving myself credit, and Jason's just writing my coattails. But on our theme song, he wrote the lyrics and the tune for it. I think it's a good song.
Well, I hope your feelings aren't hurt that I'm not using your original
Yeah,
intro
see, I
that
came
you
up with
gave
one.
me last time.
You asked me on the fly, and I did it. And
How do you decide when you're putting your podcast up on the internet? How do you decide what album art, cover art? I don't know what it's actually called in
yeah.
podcasting, but how do you decide what to use?
Probably 80% of them are pictures that Jason and I have been in together over the last 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we met in 1997 at summer camp, and so we already had like all these pictures. So usually I would just find whatever picture made him look the worst, and then just put that on there. Or if there was some way that picture could represent, so one of them was talking about holiday traditions or something, and I found some picture that looked like it was like him as a kid, and maybe you could think that was around the holiday time or something. So those worked, and then for some of the other episodes, then it would be like the person, whoever was the guest, the album art or whatever you call it would include that person's picture, as the album art for it, a picture that I had taken while we were together in the studio, whatever studio we were in that day.
I've just been stealing people's Instagram photos. I'll just find one that I think is a good one, and I'll just screenshot it. And
You should
upload
cartoon
that.
it like you did your picture. Or did you do
that?
that?
Was another
That was a
Fiverr
Fiverr?
thing I had to pay someone to do.
Yeah.
I
They do have those apps you just get on your phone where you...
They're rarely free. They're the ones you download. You're like, oh, this is going to be great, and you get in there, and it's like $29.99 a month.
If you want to continue, yeah, there are a lot of those.
So I
dumb
always leave a
ones.
bad review, and then the developers will respond and say, "I'm sorry, we have to charge $30 a month to make." It's like, charge 10 cents, and I would have paid that, and then get a bunch more people to pay 10 cents, rather than like the 1% that'll pay $30 a month for some stupid app.
I like that you let them know. Give them a piece of your mind,
Always, yeah.
Yeah, always.
Do you ever have like a call to action on your podcast? I hate when I go on YouTube and, say how to do plumbing under a sink. You Google search that, and then YouTube comes up. And then you click on it, and it's like, "Hi, I'm Shawnessey Cargile, and this is my YouTube channel. I'm about to show you how to do under the sink plumbing. But first, would you follow and subscribe and like
and hit the button.
And it's like, one, I know what I came here for. Don't tell me the title. And two, like, I'm going to follow you if it's actually good content. Do you have have you tried any call to actions, like at the end of your podcast, be like, hey, if you like this, tell your friends. Have you tried anything like that, and has it worked?
I noticed that with some of the other podcasts that I listen to that are actually like successful. A lot of them would say at the beginning, hey, you remember you can find us on Spotify and this and all the major platforms, and just go ahead and follow us if you want to, leave a 5-star review. And I was like, oh, that's probably not a bad idea, because at least in the Apple world, if you get enough of these 5-star reviews, then maybe if we got like hundreds of them, then we could like get sponsored, and then I could quit part of my job and live like Derek. But never really did that. Every now and then we'll make a reminder, just so you know, you can find this on Spotify and SoundCloud and et cetera, et cetera. More of a call to action, and we don't do it every time, but we started doing it at the end. Jason, what's something that you're into right now that you think people should try? Or like, hey, here's something I'm into. So we talked about the Miracle League before, where I was like, oh, hey, just closing comments. We'll do like a closing comment sometimes. Check out the Miracle League. Go to here. This is a pretty cool thing. Da-da-da-da. Jason, what's your thing?
Why doesn't Jason do Miracle League?
Selfish. It's just mostly no. It's on Sabbath morning, which for me works great. Every now and then it conflicts with things I'm doing at church. I have to kind of juggle those. He does music at his church every Sabbath morning. So that's probably the main reason. But I think now his son's old enough, he should bring his son out. Because his son's like 4.5, and his son would get a kick out of just in general being there, and could learn a little something, and could see a little diversity on the field in a pretty unique way. So we'll do a call to action. Big brothers, big sisters, I talked about that before, like, hey, mentoring. If you're doing it, great. If you're not, check this out. Or we'll make some kind of call to action in that way.
I was going to bring this up earlier, kind of off topic, but that's just what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I have a Jason. His name is Brandon Lowry. I mentioned him a ton on the last podcast with Mark Ullum.
Oh, he's super annoying?
Super annoying, yeah. My arch nemesis.
Okay, that's tracks.
He's, so, before I gotta stop. I just said I wasn't going to
go more off topic.
I wasn't going to not finish my thoughts. How do you decide, like, are all of your podcasts safe for your grandma to listen to? Because I just wanted to say douchebag, but I think I say douchebag.
Never say douchebag. That's like one of those words.
I think I say douchebag in front of my mom or grandma. I don't think in my mind that's not a bad word.
Douchebag's out. I would not say douchebag on a podcast, especially not one you're going to put in public. Douchebag is way over the top.
Brandon Lowry let his URL lapse, so I now own BrandonLowry.com.
This is like a friend of yours?
Yeah. What's Jason's last name?
Foster.
Have you looked to see if JasonFoster.com is available?
I have not. I know he doesn't have one, but I've never looked to see. So
you need to own that.
You wait. Are you going to start a website and like
it forwards to JoeBiden.com. He's a massive Republican, so it's super funny.
So is Jason. That works perfect.
Oh, so just have it forward to JoeBiden.com.
It would have to... so Jason's would forward to BenShapiro.com if there's that.
Does he hate Ben Shapiro?
No, he loves him.
Oh.
Well, I say that he loves him. He gets annoyed when I say that, but he quotes him a lot, so I know that he likes him. It's more of a closet Ben Shapiro
I love Ben
fan.
Shapiro impressions. They're always really good. I actually like Ben Shapiro too. I don't agree with everything he says, but I think he's pretty brilliant.
He's very smarmy, very arrogant. Yeah. Speaks really fast.
But you need to get JasonFoster.com, and I won't post this until you make sure it's available.
That's kind of a funny just thing to hold over someone. Like, I own your domain.
My whole life I've always just made photoshoppings of him and just mess with him unrelentlessly.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how close are you with Brandon Lowry?
He's been one of my best friends since like sophomore year of high school, I think.
Okay.
So I'm sure he'll never listen to one of my podcasts. If he did,
you guys were that close.
He would never get 48 minutes and 24 seconds in.
Would have given up by now.
We're close, but we talk on the phone about once a year, and he would never be able to get this far into a podcast.
Wow.
Like books, podcasts, learning is not his thing.
Learning, reading, listening.
He's a IT professional, but he's a super like suboptimal computer user, like mid-level computer user.
I feel like you just dissed him, but those words are so far from my head, I'm not even sure what you said. So your first question off topic, is it safe for like your grandmother to listen to? We're very PG-esque, in part because having worked at summer camps and a couple different schools, and hoping that the podcast, at the least, could be used as a way just to reconnect with old friends, former students, former campers. So it's in my mind, not only like, do I want the podcast to represent who I am in real life? And in real life, I'm usually not that vulgar. So I can kind of be genuine to who I am, but also wanted to make it accessible. Now, some of our views and opinions on like social matters, we weren't trying to be, like...
Have you got some heat?
Sheltered. Not necessarily, but I know there are people who wouldn't listen to us after we started talking about social issues.
Yeah.
Who before, when it was just like stories and random stuff and maybe kind of funny or entertaining, I think there were more people that would listen. Granted, not huge numbers, but let's say if we would get kind of like 150 listens per week, like, wow, that's awesome that anybody would listen. That's pretty cool. Once we started doing more social issues in the summer of 2020, then it was down to like maybe 75 listens per week.
I think some people got burned out on that. Like, not because your content wasn't good, but it's just like, man, I've had enough of this. Like,
that's a fair point too. Yeah, there could be some of that. I just noticed a little bit once we went into more serious topics, and not being like, as the authority on this topic, just more of like, man, this is what I've noticed.
Asking questions
of each other, trying to look at things really objectively, but then also speaking from the gut on things. So there were things that I'm not trying to censor myself on, but not censor like, the F word or anything, but just like, I'm going to share what I really think about the racism in America and what that looks like at times, and so some people, they don't want to hear that. Granted, I understand why, but otherwise, it's a PG thing. I want people, like, at any point, my niece, my nephews could listen to it. They may not get it, but they could listen to it and it would be fine for them to listen to.
It's something I've been thinking about, because I want to be able to, like, be myself. You're different. Sometimes you're different people with different friends. I have some friends that are very crass, and then other ones that are like real buttoned up. So it's like, I was thinking about maybe what I think I'm going to do is I want to let the conversation go where it wants to go, but I may just put like an advisory warning on some.
No, if for whatever reason you're like, this.
I mean, I think that's the way,
more...
and I'll just tell my mom or grandma. Not like they're probably going to listen anyway, but
your mom wouldn't listen. Come on.
My mom might. My grandma clearly. Grandmas don't know what a podcast is. I'm sure of that. But I may just be like, okay, this one don't listen to.
Or don't judge me, Mom.
Yeah.
This one's a little more like I'm an adult.
So I don't know if another thought I didn't really finish is, do you edit yours much? Like, how much editing are you doing?
Oh, no. The first couple times I did, maybe trying to cut stuff, and I was like, dang, this takes a long time. This is already taking up, depending on how long of a time we spoke. So we speak for like an hour and a half. I drive 30 minutes to his house, 30 minutes back, about 2.5 hours. I put it on there. I add the music to it. I put it on SoundCloud. I did it. Pretty soon it's like, 4 hours a week. Not horrible at that time. But then I started grad school. So I was like, all right, I still want to do this, but I'm going to have to really streamline this. And so we got a pretty good rhythm too. So whatever we're saying, there's no need to go back and cut it out or whatever. If it's random, it's random. If it trails off, it trails off. Obviously, no one's paying us to do this, or we're not trying to get paid to do it, although that would be pretty cool. And so then it was just like, I do like this American life, like music transitions and pauses. So I'd put little things like that in there. There's certain, like, we have a mission statement. So when we read the mission statement, the mission statement music would come in for that.
What is your mission statement?
Yeah, for our mission statement saying like this is what we're about. So.
Wow.
Like, we'd have a little 10-15 seconds of that, and then there'd be our intro song and the outro song, and then occasionally, if there was a really good story but it was a long story, I would go in and edit that a little bit to break it up and add music to kind of match it, like This American Life. But for the most part, it was like, how can we make this have some continuity from last episode where it was intro song, outro song, theme song here, da-da-da. Keep that consistency, but not try to spend... Because then if I'm spending 4 or 5 hours a week doing this, it becomes much more difficult to do it regularly. And it's already difficult to do it regularly. I mean, you found that out. You got into it. You got equipment. You had a mode, a method, and in 3 months, had a couple episodes. And originally you thought, well, but that's not bad. And at first you were like, maybe I'll do it once a month. So not like you're far off what you initially intended, but you start adding editing and 5 hours.
I really didn't want to get started until I still have quite a list of questions, but I wanted to like learn a lot, because I think the best way to, like, if other people are interested in podcasting, they can kind of use this too. But I really want to just ask a lot of questions so that I am better prepared. I hate listening to my voice most of the time, so I figure what I'm going to do, minimal editing, unless it's like really heavy. Auto-tune it.
Yeah, auto-tune your voice.
But listen to it and then be like, that was like, I don't know, a weird story that I told that doesn't make sense. I did that a lot with Mark's. Or just like long pauses, or if I'm reading my notes. I cut out some small stuff I expect to do. But I don't want to do a lot of editing. I want it to be kind of... Eventually, sometimes, like, when you and I are talking, I forget that we're recording. I do, yeah, yes.
I know what you're about. You want to start giving out medical advice. I get it, Derek, okay? I get it.
Does a podcast need a good title? Like, does it need a good name, or does that not matter?
Of course it matters. Unless you have a famous name yourself, then it doesn't really matter. Like, Derek's a good name.
I was really proud of that one.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I was trying to figure out how to spell it was the big... Like, did I want to actually write my name Derek, but I decided to just keep it as close to Essa. Also, I don't know how to say it. Like, I say Derek, but then all of the guys who read for me for the voiceover, they said Derek, and I'm like, oh, am I saying it wrong? So I don't. Maybe it doesn't really. I did have some British guy, and I had an American guy, and but also I have essaderek.com, and it's short. It's really hard to find the perfect URL and also have it short. It's like finding an email, Gmail address or something.
Right. It's good branding by you.
Does a podcast need to be made for a good reason? Like, do you have to have a good reason for a podcast, or can you just do it?
That's kind of the pro and con, I think. Everyone can have a podcast right now, which is kind of cool, but it's also like, just kind of feeds your own personal ego. Like, who cares? Oh, I have a podcast. What do you do? I talk about me. Oh, everyone does it. That's social media. So it seems like, yeah, you should have like an actual purpose, but then it's like, if you try to get too purpose-driven, then you won't do it. So if it's fun and it's not too selfish.
Well, I'm kind of doing this. I'm going to actually get ahead of something I want to talk about later, but it's like a good time to talk about now. It's like, so one thing, I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan. So I
don't know why, but yeah.
It's really fun for me to watch him on Pat McAfee, because you learn so much about him that you wouldn't know, and he's actually like, he purposely shares some things about himself. I don't like sit around all week like I think he does, and like, what little interesting nugget about myself can I share? But that's kind of, I want to make a record of myself so that people can like see me from a different perspective and learn. So
now, is that part of you feel like you're misunderstood, or you just feel like you don't share a lot because of?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. If it's a podcast about me, but it's not because it necessarily needs to be an ego thing as much as like, I don't know, my friends can listen and like, oh, I didn't know that about Derek.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Inklings? This is something I was really excited to talk to you about. Inklings. So the Inklings was C.S. Lewis. It was Tolkien, and then they had a third friend who ended up dying. So their thought was 3 is the best amount of friends that you can have. Because you and I can talk and get to know each other. But then if Jason was here and I see you two talking, I can get to know you in a way that I would never get to know you straight on. I can watch you two interact, and it's a whole different perspective on how to get to know someone. So I read the book, and then my friend's birthday came up, and I gave him the book. So I didn't finish it, but that was one of the things.
Is it called Inklings?
Yeah, the Inklings. It was a group, a writers group that they had, and when their friend died prematurely, it ended.
Yeah.
And I think there were other ones like Tolkien's son, I think, took it up, and other people were part of the Inkling. But so that's kind of something I just think would be interesting. Is like, talk about some old stories, but then also like, I don't know, get to know me through me talking to other people.
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense.
So it's esoteric about Derek. So you don't have to be a Derek fan, but it's going to help. Otherwise, you're going to listen to some stranger who
It's strange.
mumbles a lot and doesn't finish his thoughts. But that's my big focus. I'm going to finish all of my thoughts.
Starting now.
Starting now. Is it important to know your audience, or do you just let your audience find you?
Yes. Oh, that's an either or.
That can be yes.
Yeah.
Both.
Probably if someone really wanted to make money. But see, that's the thing. If you're famous, like if you're Aaron Rodgers and you just start Aaron Rodgers podcast, you can talk about anything, and your audience is going to find you because they're like, oh, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's only from Wisconsin that people are going to find you from, but no one else cares about him anywhere else, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just doing it without fame, then I would imagine you have a certain audience in mind.
Yes.
Or like you said, like that's what we did. Like the goal was just to share stories that we think are funny and true and random, and over time we've shared them with friends, or they include our friends. So I was like, yeah, let's just share those stories again. And worst case scenario, our friends and maybe our families will be like, oh yeah, I remember those stories. Those were fun. And so there's the audience right there. And then what we didn't expect over time was people we hadn't seen in 20 years, or former students from way back in the day, or friends that I haven't seen or heard from who were like, hey, we listened to that. We really like that. And that sparked up conversation. So I thought that was kind of cool to...
Yeah. After talking to Mark, Mel Professor, I had a memory of him, just like we'd have critique. All the photos would be up on the wall on these stands, and I have a memory of him just like, if they were bad, he would just throw them on the floor, and
throw the picture on the floor.
Yeah. So
Rude.
he didn't think that happened, because he said he had no memory of that. He remembered one time where he was gesturing and he tossed it. And maybe that's all that I remember, because I talked to my Brandon Lowry guy, and he's like, "Oh no, he should just set them on the floor." But that did happen one time. So my memory
Because he always threw them on the floor.
Yeah, was that he just always threw them on the floor.
Rubbish on the floor.
But he would just take them down if they just weren't, if they weren't good. I think he would just put them, like, he'd set them on the floor. But I just remember him just tossing them. I talked to Lowry, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't think that happened." He said he just like set them down sometimes, but he said he wasn't throwing them. So I needed that tiebreaker. I don't know. I still don't know if any of my other. I don't think any of my other photo major friends have listened to the last podcast. So I probably need.
This was a professor friend that you guys had.
Yes. Well, he was on the last podcast.
Yeah,
the
and he was actually your. He's both roles. He was a professor there, and then became your friend.
Yeah. So I had brought him down here to do some photography for the Men's Suits company.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't really enjoy photography that much, and I was given a budget. I'm like, well, I'm going to hire the best guy that I know for the job. So he came in, and we got a new website up and everything. But do you guys do any pre-production when you're like you talk a little bit ahead of time? But are you doing any pre-production? Like, here's what we're going to talk about. Here's a list, or do you just go right into it?
Most of the time, just like, all right, Jason, can you put down your iPad and turn off the TV and stop texting? Can you just do like one less of those? That's mostly the pre-production. He's like, well, yeah, no, I'm paying attention. Like, all right, I thought maybe tonight we could talk about. He's like, I'm like, all right, whatever, record. So usually pre-production is just getting him to take 12 of the things he's trying to do and maybe just do 2 of them while we do our podcast.
At least half focus.
Yeah, at least half.
What equipment are you recording on? I've tried a couple different things today. Because I couldn't find the equipment I had before, I'm using iPhones.
Yeah.
And you had said that one of the best things that you've found is to record in a car. How often are you recording in a car?
When we were just using my iPhone, we did it probably 3 times, like in the car, because it was obviously the smallest space. It was compact. There wasn't a lot of outside noise. The phone picked us up really great, but didn't get a lot of ambient other stuff. That was the best. We would also use that in his house, like sitting at the table, here's the phone in between us, but then you'd hear like the TV, or you'd hear his son, or you'd hear the dogs bark, which was fine. What was really good that cost more was, he has like a little mixer, 4-channel mixer, and we had, I guess, SM58 microphones that sound really crisp and clear, and we used those until his dog chewed through one of the cables, and now we can't plug it in. So that's when we went more to like, well, I'll just use the iPhone. But if we can get in a smaller space, so a closet would be better. But I didn't really want to get into a closet with him, so we used my car a few times.
What about length? Is there a certain length that you're always trying to hit, or does it really not matter, or is it just based on what the topic is?
Trying to stay within an hour, around an hour. Unless there's a guest, then we would just talk as long as we could, and then break them into hour long. Here's part 1 with him. Here's part 2 with her. Here's, that kind of thing. But I thought an hour was pretty good.
Yeah, I've had a really I don't consider myself super talkative, but I have a really hard time. I was aiming for an hour today. We're already at 1:05, and we're about halfway through the other half of what we tried getting through last time.
Wow. That's impressive.
I mean, I guess it helps that you're very talkative. Are you and
only
Jason?
Only with you, Derek. Only with you.
Are you and Jason both extrovert? You're definitely extrovert. Is Jason also an extrovert, or?
He has ADHD, probably. Whatever that makes him.
So does that
can't
mean
focus
he
on anything.
talks
No, he's
a
very
lot?
extrovert. Yeah, he talks a lot. He's a bad listener too. So I guess that makes him more of a extrovert. Jason really is a pretty good guy.
Have you guys ever thought about doing a live? You talked about you had you had done one with 7 other people and you had your own squares. Have you guys done live ones?
We
where
were
people can
going
give
to,
feedback?
I tried to convince him, let's just go Facebook Live for this next one. Doesn't matter if anybody watches, but there'll be 4 or 5 people that might interact with us, and then we can talk or answer a question, or they'll say something random we can comment on. That'd be kind of fun. And then we'll just take the audio and we'll just upload it. That'd be cool, right? We had trouble getting that set up with him. So then we did go into 88.1 and did an interview in the afternoon with Richard Wenham. This is our local NPR station here in Chattanooga. That was fun. That was all about music, because we had a concert we were doing coming up, and so we had to go on and play a few of our songs, talk with him. So that was kind of like a live thing. But my side dream for this podcast, the Normal Life podcast, that I've thought about multiple times. I've done nothing to make it happen. But one time on SoundCloud, as we're looking at our analytics, and specifically about an episode that was in December that had talked about Christmas traditions from our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm on the SoundCloud app and I'm looking at analytics and I see, holy cow, we just put this out 2 days ago and there's already 200 and something listens, which is not normal. And then you could go and look and see, where are people listening from?
Mm-hmm.
This is just for the SoundCloud. And we're on 4 different things, Spotify and Stitcher and whatever. But on SoundCloud, it shows you cities, countries that they're from. I was like, sweet. Where are we getting all these listens from? And the U.S. wasn't the number one country where we're getting listens from. It was from Finland. So Finland, of the 205 listens, 170 in those first years were from Finland. What? How would he... What? And I'm looking back through our previous episodes. Nothing was ever coming from Finland. Maybe one. Mm-hmm. One listen from Finland. How did Finland... Something we did in that Christmas episode, some hashtag I used or something, so that we had hundreds of listens from Finland. So I thought, oh man, okay, I'm looking through the analytics and I see Dublin shows up pretty often. 1 or 2 listens from Dublin. I'm like, oh, it would be awesome. Somehow use the right hashtag, the right thing that really connects somehow randomly through analytics with Dublin. Then I connect with someone and they're like, we want you guys, we listen to you guys from the States. Then when I do my annual pilgrimage to Dublin and then go to Scotland and maybe Liverpool, I'll get Jason to go with me and we'll do a live The Normal Life podcast on location in Dublin for all those Dublin fans who
That'd
listen.
be awesome.
Yeah, this never happened though. No one listens. No one cares anywhere else. And the Finland explosion only happened this one episode, this one time, but hundreds from that country for some reason, and then nothing else.
Yeah, I would love to do a podcast with one of my favorite, the UK Packers. He calls himself Stee Diddy. I would love to do a podcast with him. Just, I love listening to it. Like Packers and then that accent together. Just it just makes me so happy.
Makes you forget that you guys are losing everyone and no one wants to play with Aaron Rodgers. And...
So, what's been the best way for you to like build your audience? Is it? I imagine it's you have guests on, and then those guests repost whatever you put on social media, and then their friends want to come and listen. Is like that's the best.
That'd be an idea, yeah. I don't know if it's helped, but that was a small idea. Not the reason to have them come on, but then it was like, if you want to share this, cool. Maybe more people will listen.
I haven't been very proactive I'm not on Facebook. I'm only on Instagram, and I've got 100 Instagrams. So that's really the only way I know to build audience. But I can't even get my friends to listen to my podcasts. So I mean, I could like throw it in their face and be like, "Here, listen."
You need to do
this.
a TED Talk. TEDx.
It would be Tedric X.
Okay. TEDx events are like the independent ones that people plan that aren't the official TED, but it's like an affiliate.
Yeah.
And so there's ones that'll be here in Chattanooga. There's one, I know one's like in November every year. There might be others, but what we should do is like speak for one of those things.
Don't you have to be really wise for that though?
You should have to be, but even something like you could.
I don't know that I'm a expert on any particular topic.
You have to be an expert. You have to pretend to be an expert.
Do you have to like rise up out of the stage and like laser beams and?
I mean,
I feel like that's a major part of a TED
Sure,
Talk.
that could be part of. I've never seen that in any TED Talk ever, but if you added that to your proposal,
I might not know what a TED Talk is.
I don't know if you do. Maybe you want to Google TED Talk. Maybe start there. Or you could go to an open mic. You're not really funny, but you could go to a stand-up open mic. There's several in town now, and then share a little something about a funny story that's featured on a podcast, and be like, by the way, I have a podcast, Esoteric, check it out, da, 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 da. You guys have been great. That'd be a way to build the audience.
I could pay a lot of money and just have it guerrilla marketing.
Or that.
What about a catchphrase? Do you guys, you guys have a catchphrase? Does a podcast need a catchphrase?
I think that you have one. I hadn't thought that far. I thought I had thought of a lot of like neat little things, but we have our mission statement, but not really a catchphrase.
Well, do you want me to be honest about my catchphrase?
I'd appreciate your honesty. Yeah.
I ripped it off of somewhere else. There's a guy named Tom Grossi, and his catchphrase is "where you don't have to be a Packer fan, but it sure does help."
Oh wow!
But there's no crossover between my audience and his audience, so I figured no one would ever know. But it's such a good for esoteric. I'm not going to come up with anything better, so I just took it.
You just stole from
Tom Grossi.
Tom
Grossi comedy.
How many Packers podcasts do you listen to?
I don't listen to Tom Grossi. He just recently went full-time YouTuber. I listen to Aaron Nagler every morning at 10, and then the UK Packers, they're like once a week or once every other week, so I listen to them while I'm mowing. I can mow my whole yard in about one episode, and then sometimes I'll just listen to the same. Then they're on SoundCloud, so then it goes to the next most recent podcast, and I'll just listen to the same one over again while I'm mowing if I run out, if it's a short podcast or something.
Okay.
So I guess my other question we kind of talked about is like, have you found any ways to be interactive, either live or are you interacting with any of your listeners at all?
Sometimes in just that we'll get a Facebook message or even on Instagram from someone saying, "Hey, I found you guys' podcast. I really like that, blah, blah, blah." Like, "Oh, man, I've talked to this person in forever." Or sometimes we have some real, smart, former students. They're like, "Jason was right, by the way, when he said blah, blah, blah." Like, what? Never even liked you when you were in my class. So that's interactive. We can interact that way. But we do a little bit through social media. I'd like to do the live thing because it'll be kind of fun just to see. And going Facebook Live is so easy to do that. I guess you could do it with your Instagram account too. You could do
Or
it
YouTube.
Insta
YouTube
Live
has it
or
too.
yeah.
So something I've been planning on doing is just asking everyone, like, what's a cause that you care about? You and I have already talked about it, which would be Miracle League and Big Brothers Big Sisters, and
yeah.
we talked about the Epilepsy Foundation. Is there any other causes that you care about that you want to just give a quick plug for, or is that the...
Those three are pretty good ones in my estimation, especially since epilepsy affects 1 out of 50 kids. It's a pretty great thing to be educated on and to know the different signs and symptoms, especially of absence seizures or absent seizures, and how they look like daydreaming or look like someone being distracted. They can have some similarities to things that people would not think are seizure related. So I think that education there is extremely important. Mentoring with Big Brothers Big Sisters, the various ways people can mentor one-on-one, like what you do, like what I do. Some people do it as a couple. They have a little, and it's a husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, same-sex couple even. Or Friday introduced a little brother to a whole family. So it's mom, dad, 2 little boys, and the boys are like the same age as the little brother, and they have similar interests with sports. Like, okay, these guys can hang out and do things together, and it's cool that the family can include their kids in this mentoring thing. So I think that's hugely important. And the Miracle League is just so easy to take part in. It's very cool. It involves the aspect of mentoring, but it's like show up on Saturday morning.
and clap.
Yeah, clap and be there for your kids and throw pitches to them, engage with them. Now, obviously, if there's some engagement beyond that morning, awesome. But at the least, that's just like an accessible thing to do that selfishly, I mean, obviously we enjoy it.
You get to sit in the shade. There's huge industrial fans. Like the fans have the best, maybe the best experience because they have shade and fan the whole time. Some mornings it's raining or drizzling. Other mornings it's like this last weekend, not a cloud in the sky. Quick question for you. Something you said just jogged a memory from college. A question about epilepsy. If you show up at a friend's house and they start having a seizure, what the heck are you supposed to do?
Did you leave when that happened in college?
No, luckily. So we'll get back to the question, but I'll
Okay.
tell you the quick story. So I go over to my friend's house. I don't think I had a phone or had texting. I just communicated with her somehow. Said, hey, I'm coming over. And I was there, 10 minutes or something. It was Berrien Springs, so it was tiny. And I go and I knock on the door. And as I knock, the door kind of opens. And I said, hello. I won't say her name. And I push the door open, and she's standing there, but her eyes are rolled up into her head.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, it was. I mean, when your friends do that, it's kind of freaky. You're just
Sure.
messing around. And then she falls to the ground and starts convulsing. And like I take a step towards her, and at that same time, her roommate, her cousin, came and just like laid over her until it was over. And then I just I felt at that point like privacy was a nice thing. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna head out. Like I didn't think I was abandoning. I felt the right thing to do was to just leave. But as I turned to leave, there's a mug on the stand by the door, and a hand starts coming out. A blue hand starts coming out of the mug.
Are you making this stuff up?
For whatever reason, her brother had put a frog inside of a surgical glove and then put it into a mug. It was like the freaking so this
What?
This happens where my friend I had heard that she had epilepsy or seizures. Are those always the same, or do you have seizures for other reasons?
Typically, if someone's had more than one seizure, especially if they've been unprovoked, like if someone had a traumatic brain injury and had a seizure because of that brain injury, maybe they only have that one seizure because of what happened that one time. Or because they had that brain injury, now they're predisposed to seizures. But if someone's had more than one, there's a good chance that they have epilepsy. This is not just going to go away. they're going to need to treat this and find out what triggers it and probably get on medication and etc.
Yeah, it's been a while, so she probably had epilepsy. But man, it was just weird.
But there was a frog in a cup by the door inside of a glove, and it came up out of
the frog
cup.
was not just going to sit there, so it starts crawling up. But then, like, the hand was like, it looked like a hand coming out of it. And after I had just seen her with her, all these new experiences,
Lots of things going on,
and my adrenaline's kind of going, and then this hand starts coming out of it. It was wild. Back to my original question.
Oh my, that's interesting.
What is the most, for people who may not know, what do you do if one of your friends starts having a seizure? What is the procedure?
So there are many different types of seizures. Could be close to 40 different kinds if you really break them down.
Wow.
All the different nuances. The one that most people think of was like what you mentioned, like someone falling out on the ground convulsing.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one type, though. But that's the one that's most notable and that feels the most urgent and maybe even the scariest for someone to see it. So if that were happening, the advice is actually to not touch them or not get on. I can see some people be like, oh, I don't want them to hurt themselves, so I'll like hold on to them or hug them or grab them. That can be dangerous for the person who's going to do the hugging, because a person can flail around, have no clue what they're doing, so you're going to catch an elbow or, an errant whatever. And if someone's body is convulsing and moving and they've got a little extra strength, they don't know that they're not controlling it, and then you try to go against it, you could hurt them. You could dislocate, break something. They used to tell people, okay, if someone's having a seizure, they're going to swallow their tongue, so you got to put something in their mouth, or you got to put a spoon in their mouth so it gets in the way of their tongue, or put a belt they bite on, and people broke their teeth from a metal spoon, or people got their fingers bitten off, or
Yeah.
And so for the most part now we've advanced to realizing it's impossible to swallow your tongue. Probably was never possible. Now I don't know how that myth kind of came up into public consciousness. Someone may bite their tongue, and unfortunately some people will bite through their tongue so bad. So it is nasty, but the main goal is you don't want them to choke because their tongue is like blocked their airwaves, or they've vomited, because someone may vomit or lose control of their bowels too. So someone's convulsing, they fall. Couple basic things would be clear the area around them as safely and as possible. Roll them on their side if they're not on their side, because if they're on their back and they're convulsing and they vomit, then it's probably they could choke on it. So you get them on their side, so if they vomit, it'll come out. On their side, areas kind of cleared out around them, and then if you can get something under their head, because if their head's hitting the ground or hitting something else, so blanket, shirt, jacket under the head, they're on their side, and then just wait with them. And you can keep time of it. And the recommendation is, if this lasts more than 5 minutes, then definitely call the ambulance. If, to your knowledge, this has never happened before, and this is the first time they're ever having a seizure, well, then go ahead and call the ambulance. If it's part of their life, like I have a couple of friends who this is just part of their life, and unfortunately it happens weekly or multiple times a week, if they or someone else called the ambulance every time it happened, it's not needed for one, and
It's expensive.
That bill is crazy. Yeah, I mean it's unbelievable. So, kind of the not the golden rule, but part of the idea is if it's more than 5 minutes, definitely call the ambulance, because then they may be into a really long one that could really be detrimental. Most of the time, that's only going to last maybe a minute or two. They're going to be exhausted afterwards. They're going to be a little bit out of it. They're going to have no clue what was actually happening. They may know, like, oh, I must have had a seizure, so I'm on the ground, I feel out of it, and maybe I bit my tongue, but they're going to need probably a lot of time to recover and sleep it off, and they may have lost control of their bowels, they may have vomited, so it could be, they're going to need some help getting cleaned up even. But that main idea, clear the area around them, get them on their side, protect the head, and let it happen. And then when it's over, kind of stick with them, let them know that they're okay. One of my friends has mentioned to me that he will start to get his hearing back before he gets any other senses back. So last thing he remembered was something, and then everything went black. And so now he's starting to hear things around him, and then eventually he'll kind of be able to see and, oh, I must have just had a seizure.
Almost like waking up.
Yeah, but that fog may take several minutes or longer. And so that's why important to stay calm, to even just while you're waiting for the person, just talk to them. Hey, it's okay. Even if you think like, oh, they can't hear me. Maybe they will start to hear you, but if anything, maybe it'll just help you. Like, stay calm. It's okay. I'm here with you. We're going to be all right. I rolled you on your side. You know, what like kind of might help calm you down. And then I think when he comes to it and he hears someone talking to him, it lets him know like he's not alone. Mm-hmm. But if he hears like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Oh, I'm freaking out. Oh, no one. I'm scared. No, and and I'm yelling and I'm screaming or I'm crying. That's probably pretty stressful to wake up to. So
yeah,
I had someone get into my car. This is one of the last times I was Uber driving, early 2020. I've done a bunch of like Uber Eats, but I was still occasionally going out at night and like giving rides. Mm-hmm. And so I had someone call for a ride really close to where I live. So I pull up to the house, and she comes out and she's like, hey, do you know where Erlinger is? And I was like, yeah, it's a couple miles away. She's like, okay. She kind of like repeats herself a few times, gets in the car, immediately lays down in the back seat on her side and starts to have a seizure. Is like convulsing. So I'm like,
that's some good timing.
I was like, oh wow, okay. I said, okay. So I just kind of talked a little bit to her, because at first I wasn't sure what she was doing, because we were just talking and didn't seem out of it totally, but her speech was a little different maybe. But then, yeah, for about the 5-6 minute ride, I just kind of kept an eye on her in the back seat. She was okay. We pulled up. I talked to them. They came out, got her inside, and that was pretty interesting.
Huh. Well, I just thought that'd be for the average person. I don't think they would know what to do.
No,
that's
no way.
I think that's what I was told. You turn them on your side. I didn't know that you couldn't choke on your tongue. I haven't also thought about that a whole lot.
Yeah, it just sounds.
I have heard that before.
Yeah, swallow your tongue.
All right, well, moving on. I think we already talked about sponsors. Today's sponsor is Suntory, all free.
It's crisp and light refreshment, and it really is crisp and light.
Konnichiwa.
That's not on here, but you said a word that you think matches where this came from. Super good.
Man, but yeah, if we could get some sponsors, then maybe they would also help us get more followers.
If only you knew like a local small business that might be a sponsor that you also work for and get paid.
Pathfinder Films?
Pathfinder, wow. What a great idea.
I'd rather be sponsored by like Mad Priest Coffee. I feel like we had Mad Priest last time, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
But if maybe they were my sponsor, then they'd also just like give me a bag of coffee.
That'd be a great sponsorship. Start small.
They probably have a pretty good following, too, because they have pretty good coffee.
Yeah. Put that on your list of things.
What do you think about lightning rounds? I've tried a couple, and I feel like they weren't that interesting. But also, our lightning round we weren't recording at that point. Cause
yeah, you really screwed that up.
I didn't realize I was on a 2 gigabyte card. I now have a 64 gig card, but like it didn't occur to me that I wouldn't have enough space.
Right.
Did you guys do lightning rounds ever?
Only in like the form of Jason, best 90 songs, top 5, go. Dun dun dun. We'll just occasionally do things like that. More just random that fits into the topic. Lightning rounds, though, those are kind of fun. I don't think it's a terrible idea.
What platforms are you on? Stitcher. I feel like I got on Stitcher and I gave up. I got frustrated with it, but I did find that you basically have to be on SoundCloud. You have to be on SoundCloud, and then SoundCloud as a host. Mm-hmm. Is that how you do it?
We use that as our host site, and then because we have the host site, then it was Apple and Stitcher and Spotify, and then SoundCloud.
I've always enjoyed the SoundCloud experience the best. When I listen to podcasts, I prefer SoundCloud.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's really cool that you can comment on specific timestamps. But right. I don't use Apple Music or Apple whatever that is. So I do have my podcast on there, and I created a link tree and an Instagram. I'm trying to think of what all platforms I tried, but then I'm kind of just okay with Apple and SoundCloud. But what else are you on besides those two and Stitcher?
Stitcher, SoundCloud, Apple, and what's the main music one that people use to stream music? You know, it's like very popular.
It's green.
Yes, Spotify.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
I don't know if I'm on Spotify. I might be. One of my friends said he downloads his podcast to something on his computer, or I forget. He's got some alternative way where he downloads them all and then he just has them in some other thing. That's how he downloaded mine and said the last one sounded like crap.
That was his critique.
Yeah, he says this one sounds like crap.
Okay.
Important question: how important is a podcast voice, and how do you develop that? What's your podcast voice?
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. That was the first one we kind of worked with, and then realized, like, you know what? That's just not me. I just got to go with my voice. And I've heard my voice enough now that doesn't bother me. But I know when you said, I don't like hearing my voice. The first few times I heard my voice on a recording was like late high school, maybe college, because of something that I had done at church or school. And it was me singing. I was like, oh, well, that's horrible. I guess I'll never sing again because it sounds terrible. I wouldn't say it's improved a whole lot, but it's kind of like coffee. Coffee doesn't taste good, really, but you just drink it enough. You're like, oh, you're older, I'm supposed to drink coffee. Oh, black coffee, yeah, it's so mature. You're like, I like black coffee. No, you don't. Black coffee tastes horrible. It's kind of similar with my voice. It hasn't really changed. I'm like, yeah, my voice is okay. So now, 26, 27 years into, like, hearing my voice, I'm like, this is my voice. This is the podcast voice.
I'm going to work on developing mine. I really tried, so I actually almost leaned towards having, instead of having a voiceover artist, using mine, because I wanted a very specific, almost like bro, you're listening to the Esoteric Podcast. Like a certain, the guys didn't hit it, and then when I was listening to mine, I was like, well, the quality is really bad, but I was able to not nail, but get close to what I actually the tone that I actually wanted. And I sent them a copy of mine, so I want kind of this tone of like, kind of, it's, I don't know, it's not broy. I feel like it's kind of broy, but it's almost like DJ, radio DJ.
Right, yeah.
But then I basically sent all the files to my friend who's a composer, and I said, hey, can you make something cool of this? And so he chose his favorite one.
Really
and
got intentional about this. Really did some.
Well, the first thing you hear is the intro. So like, start off strong, and then that's over. Like, whoa, this is really high production value. And then we start in, and it's like, oh,
train wreck.
Why does this sound bad? And why is this so awkward? Going from really nice to like this really awkward.
But maybe that gets people's attention. So that's another strategy.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to have an outro. I might use a part of it as an outro. My next point was like on music selection. I guess that's not that big of a deal. You guys wrote your own. I found one on, I can't remember the website that we use at work, but we have a paid subscription, and we can download as much as we want. ArtGrid, I think. I was on another podcast, and a guy sent me his reel. I work in films, so guys send me the reels all the time, and some guy had the same exact song in his reel.
Oh, nice!
It's like there's like many thousand songs on there, but he also it's a good track. So we're actually making some progress through my list finally.
Only 2 hours, and
I'm realizing that we're reaching the end. So I guess the thing that I'm gonna like work on, I guess, is just building my audience. Do you have anything else to like recommend for like how to build an audience?
Consistently do something.
My
Consistently do it and share it, and then.
My dad has a saying: "There's an ass for every seat." So I'm thinking, like, there'll be an ass for the seats that I create. So, like, hopefully, I just can't imagine someone who doesn't know me or my guest would want to listen to just a guy talking about random stuff. Maybe they'd
they'll never want to with that attitude, Derek.
Maybe they'd come to this one if they want to get a little bit of random advice on how to build a podcast. But I feel like even you go on YouTube or you see stuff on Instagram, it's like, why on earth would you get that tattoo or like that piercing? But there's like 3,000 likes, so like there's people out there who have the same
likes. Like I thought,
interests.
Why would you wear your hair this way when I came in and saw you?
The
Not
truth is,
just because you have the party in the back going on, but there's something on top going on it's not a party. It's not business.
I did not shower today.
Okay,
I brushed my
that's what it
teeth
is.
just minutes before you got here.
Thank you. Appreciate
I was
that.
just cleaning, woke up and started cleaning, drank coffee and cleaned.
What time did you wake up? I came over like 5:30.
Well, I cleaned from the time I woke up until you got here at 5:30.
So 5 to 5:30? Dang. Okay.
So I talked to Mark about this a little bit last week, but as far as my podcast, have you read The Four Agreements?
Of your podcast? Yeah, and I signed off on it, and I agreed, no F words. Don't talk a lot about your hair.
You signed the consent app.
Pet the cat. Yeah, went through all that. The Four Agreements.
The book, The Four Agreements.
Well, obviously, because I read many leather-bound books, but just for the listener who hasn't, tell them about it.
So it's been the most impactful book that I've listened to or read. It was recommended by Aaron Rodgers, part of his book club, and it was really impactful. It seems like it's kind of like Eastern religion kind of stuff, but it's the Toltecs. I believe they're from Mexico. I could be way off on that. The Toltecs were like these ancient wise guys. But so the Four Agreements: be impeccable with your word, don't make assumptions, don't take anything personally, and always do your best. So that's kind of, I really like the book. It impacted me, but also I'm not going to use that as a premise for my podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
I always do my best, so that's not a problem. I take things personally a lot. I've gotten better over the years of just like not caring what people think. I think it's, you know how like our dads will wear like the ugliest shirt or hat and they just don't care because it's really functional.
Right.
So I'm getting there. I make a lot of assumptions, so I'm trying to like, you know, ask questions. That'll be easy. I don't want to assume anything. And then just being impeccable with your word would be, you know, the most base version of that is don't gossip.
This is great. That would be kind of a nice ground rules at the beginning. Like, hey, as we start this off, these are the things that we kind of...
I had to use it on the last podcast with Mark because I knew we were talking about some really heavy stuff about how he lost his job and, you know, just weird memories I had of college. And then it was the first time I've been around him where he wasn't my professor or a professor. He was, you know, I hired him. So the power dynamic was equal. In fact, I might have, because I'm not going to say I was his boss, but I was the one that was doing the hiring. Yeah. So it was almost like I felt like it was equal. Yeah. But if you really think about, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe like I had the edge while we were working. But so yeah, we talked about that on the last podcast, but that's kind awesome. Of, I think, a really good way to rein it in and also not necessarily have explicit content. Like I think I have certain friends, like I just know we're just telling some wild stories about college and I'm going to have to put some kind of like advisory on it. And then, yeah, I also just need to think about what words are okay to say. Like, I love the word douchebag. It's one of my favorite words. And I feel like it's, you know, pretty acceptable.
It's one of your favorite words.
It's one of my favorite.
Favorite because like, you use it all the time? Or it's like one of those hidden gems?
It's like I
love this word, but I never use it.
No, I use it a lot. And I think it's because it's like, I don't know, it's really bad in my head, but it's like kind of okay to say. It's like, have you ever been around foreign people who will drop the F-bomb or say certain words, and because it's not their first language, that's like not a bad word at all?
Okay.
So maybe because I didn't know what a douchebag was and didn't use it till like later in life or something. I love how British people and like people from the UK drop the C word. Like
Oh yeah,
Like-
I'm like, oh,
They're like here.
come
That's like
on.
one of the words like you cringe.
It
Like
hits
even
you,
I
yeah.
cringe. And there, though, it's like, oh, Jason Lowry. Yeah, you know what?
yeah, that one's-
It's like it's a term of endearment, but here it's like you cringe when you hear that word.
yeah. I do not think of it in positive terms.
So one of the things I'm gonna have friends, people that are like impactful in my life. One of the questions that I want to regularly ask is like, what's a question that I've always wanted to ask someone? I don't know, like, what a question I've always wanted to ask you is. So I'm gonna just ask, are you still dating that girl? Woman. I think
Good
you're supposed to say
question. It's a
woman.
woman, yeah,
Woman.
because she's not under 18. When you say girl, it sounds more like
It's something I've been
Sounds
struggling with
inappropriate.
because I don't like.
to know what to call.
You're supposed to call. I don't know. I don't. I get
I've
lost
had
on
this
political.
conversation with so many people, believe it or not, like because a guy, you just say guy.
You wouldn't
most
call him
people
a
just
boy.
say
That's
guy.
insulting.
Yeah, hey, I'm dating a guy. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. If
Oh, so you're dating a guy now?
Well,
That's
I was
his
kind
name.
of flipping the conversation around there. I was saying, for instance, I should have given more clarity there. If one of my female friends, or it could be a guy friend too, were like, yeah, I'm dating a guy, I wouldn't be like, oh, a child? An old man? What do you mean? I'm just like, oh, a guy. Guy's like universal. But if someone asked me, like they asked me, like, hey, you dating anyone? And I'm saying, yeah, I'm dating this girl. I'd be like, dude, you're 40s. What do you mean dating a girl? I'm like, well, no, I mean like a woman. Oh, like in her 60s? Like all of a sudden
Or a
that sounds
lady.
too old. Like a lady from Madame. I'm dating a female person and still dating her. She's wonderful. Her name's
I've-
Stephanie. She's in her mid-30s, so
You're still together.
she's a woman, I guess. Woman.
I've been having some conversations with a friend in regards to political correctness, and I find if you just say friend in every situation, he's got some customers that are trans, and he's known them when they were one sex and now they're another sex. I said just say friend. Doesn't have to make sense. I mean, like,
Friend works.
there are people who say who want to be called clown and clown self, and like animal versions that's their sexual identity.
Wait,
or
I
their-
haven't heard the clown self.
I was watching a Ben Shapiro video, and he, it's the freaks of TikTok or whatever. And she was giving her pronouns, and then her hierarchy. If you have to call me this, I want to be called this. And one of them was clown self, clown or clown self.
Okay.
So I mean, friend. It
Wait, so
doesn't
Ben,
always make
Ben
sense.
Shapiro has a Freaks of TikTok segment.
It's Ben Shapiro.
See, this is
reacts.
why I don't like him, because he's just inflammatory and arrogant. Ben Shapiro's the guy who would have like, all right, in my next segment, Freaks of TikTok. Look at these people. I get it. That's entertaining. People
I don't think
find
he
it
calls
funny.
them freaks. I think that was me. But
Oh. All right,
one
take it
good
back.
one, he reacts to the song. Was it WAP? WAP? W-A-P?
Yeah.
That was pretty goofy. Like he likes to have fun with stuff sometimes, and that's one of them. It's like his wife's a doctor, so he like had talked to her and like got all ready to explain the song WAP, which
Explain.
for the average listener should know what that is. If my mom's listening or any nice
you don't have
Christian
to Google
person,
it, yeah.
don't Google it.
Yeah, I don't have to. That's...
I'm just gonna let it go there and not finish that.
And if you're a nice Christian person or his mom, don't Google Ben Shapiro. I'll just save you time right there. That's just my bias coming
Yeah. Or
through.
was that Nicki Minaj or was that
WAP?
The Stallion, Megan the
Thee
Stallion?
Stallion. I thought it was Nicki,
I don't know
but-
who it is.
I thought it was Nicki
I
Minaj.
mean, they all kind of.
It is quite the song. Quite the song.
Well, I can't believe it, but we finally made it to the end. Before we end, I guess what advice do you have for me for like how do I stay interested in making a podcast, and how do I make a podcast that people are going to want to listen to?
Just start doing it and set not a reminder, but like a commitment. Like every Wednesday I have to do this, or every other Wednesday I just have to do it. I got to put it out.
Routine.
I got to get into it. I got to do it. And for me, although I could just do this by myself, but for me it was just fun. That Jason and I can do this together. So this is our, we're friends. It gives us an excuse to hang out. So we have to do it. Not because people really care about our stories or opinions or really wants to listen, but he and I have to hang out, so we got to do this podcast, and then maybe someone will listen. I think if you're more like, all right, let me get all the things ready for it and then do it. Although you get stuff done, you do a lot of stuff. A lot of projects, a lot of home renovations, a lot of personal things, a lot of jobs. So,
but we have established I'm neurotic, so I do. You know that the reason you said this was because I was being neurotic. I guess is I overthink things.
Well, yeah,
and it's like, so I think we were talking about. I didn't want to go to your church because everyone was wearing a mask. Everyone was wearing a mask, but masks weren't required. So I just like started thinking, I don't want to be the only person to wear a mask there. I don't want to wear a mask. Overthinking it. There was something else where like
there's a lot of things where you're
just
overthinking
really
things,
neurotic.
You do a lot of other stuff. You just jump right into it. But I guess those are more things where you're not on display.
Yeah, I don't like to be the center of attention.
You just need to do it. Just do it. Whatever it is. Every other Tuesday, every other Wednesday, every Wednesday. Just do it.
I've got some really, really fun ideas coming up.
Nice.
For some podcasts. So I hope you'll start listening to my podcast.
I am. You know, when I go home to work on my mediocre DIY project in my basement apartment, it's not going to be that good, even though I am trying. I'm actually trying. I'm just not good at this stuff. I'm going to listen to a little esoteric.
I've got a sensei that I could introduce you to. He's $40 an hour.
Martial arts.
Home sensei. I wouldn't be able to do anything around here without Matt Beard. You just have him in, and he'll work on your schedule. He'll never listen to this podcast. I think his wife listened to my podcast, actually.
Okay.
And so neither one of them are going to be happy that I'm giving his name out some more, and then I'm going to get him even less. But he's awesome to work with because he'll work on your schedule. Say, hey, I want to work 4 hours next Tuesday. And if he's available, he'll come. He'll teach you how to do it. He'll do it. I micromanage him. He went from my contractor to one of my best friends now.
Oh, okay.
But if you need someone, he is just the perfect person for people like us who we're not broke and we have a little bit of ambition. We know what we want. We're homeowners. And we want to get involved so that we feel like we're like he's almost like a surrogate dad.
Okay.
The dad that we need in our like middle age selves.
I mean, I have a dad too.
Is he a handyman?
Yeah, actually, he's really handy.
Both of my dads are too, and I can't get them to come here. I've
They
got
live,
a
like,
dad and a
flippin'
stepdad,
far
not
away.
gay dads, but
Okay.
yeah, they do live far away. One's 6 hours and one's like 14 hours, but they're both really
6
handy.
hours? Yeah. It's far enough though.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other advice?
Do it.
Just
do it. Just start
keep doing
doing
it.
it. Make a schedule. You got to do it. What I would say. Well, yeah. That's about it.
Well, all right. I'm just looking at my list. We'll do a lightning round, and maybe we'll run out of space, or maybe I'll cut it. And we kind of did a lightning round before. We'll try it again. What's a book you recommend right now?
Blue Like Jazz.
What do you think about feet?
I'm not a big fan. I try to wear socks all the time, just me personally, even.
Music or band that's not the Beatles?
Oh man, that's like just I like in general, or the best of all time.
Either one. First band that comes to mind that's not the Beatles.
John Foreman. I like him. He's the lead singer of Switchfoot. He has some solo stuff too.
Switchfoot was totally like 6th, 7th grade for me.
They're still around. They're still there.
What are you afraid of?
Definitely snakes. That's one thing.
Me too. I have the same squeal every single time I'm out in the garden and there's always snakes or a really wiggly worm. I have the same... I need to just like continually record myself while I'm gardening because, every 10th time I'm weeding or every 5th time I'm weeding, there's a snake. A little tiny one, and I make the same squeal. I wish I had a recording of that. Add that to the intro.
Add that to the intro. There you go.
What's your favorite would you rather? Would you rather be a or would you rather be a
Yeah, it's
B?
always like nasty things or like bad things. How can you have a favorite of that?
Oh, I just didn't know if you had one.
They're always bad ones.
I can't remember if we talked about this before, but I was traveling out to the Akoi with this guy, and he'd always do 3, and the third one was always would you rather have a leg made of bread? And then you'd ask like, well, does the bread keep growing back? Is the bread edible? Like, and he would just say whatever. Any of those is fine, but any of those.
We got into this. I don't know why. In college, for probably a good solid year, maybe our sophomore year, when we'd ask everyone this, and I really felt like it said a lot about a person, and I think it really does. It was like, would you rather eat human flesh or poop? So I guess that's my favorite would you rather. I don't ask it anymore, but we used to ask that a lot because it was really important to know.
Would you rather eat another human's flesh, your own flesh, or have a leg made of bread?
Leg made of bread.
I mean, the two together, you could have a nice sandwich. But seriously, super seriously, if you had to eat human flesh, would you rather eat your own or someone else's?
I'm gonna throw up. I guess. I don't.
There's no pain involved. There's 2 arms on a grill. There's yours, and then there's Jason's.
What the freak is wrong with you? I would just close my eyes and just
take one. Take a bite.
Hope for the best. Yeah, I guess someone else's harm. Let's do another one.
When you're looking for someone of the opposite sex, what are your 3 main attractions? Like, what are things that like
big butt? No, I'm kidding. In general, with people in general that I want to be around. So this relates to either someone who doesn't just talk about themselves all the time, but ask questions of other people. That's a very attractive trait. A smile, a really nice smile, someone who looks confident, displays a certain amount of confidence. I'm trying to not just say like stereotypical guy physical things.
Well, I guess those are obvious.
I mean, there's a wide variety of aesthetics that I find very attractive. But yeah, someone who's not selfish, who asks questions, who has a nice smile, and then it's just genuinely thoughtful of other people. Those really have to be there, for sure.
Yeah, hair is a big one for me. Like, hair is like a girl with short hair would never pass the test. I like long hair, but nice hair. Smile is good, but teeth are like a big one for me.
Okay.
Do you
very straight, like white teeth?
I mean, that's ideal,
okay.
But I mean, just like nice hygiene, the whole mouth area.
Okay.
I feel like is
you look
important.
At that a
like
lot.
A nice smile is great, but like not really gnarly teeth. There can be teeth that are attractive, that are crooked, but attractive crooked. Have you ever noticed that? Like
I don't know that I really am that drawn to teeth. But it can be thrown off. But yeah,
not a teeth guy.
Maybe not.
I have a friend that's really into back dimples. That's something that okay, whatever. There's holes in your back. What do you think about back dimples?
Where are the back dimples?
On the other side of either side of the tramp stamp.
I mean, tramp stamp. Don't get me why I didn't mention that being one of my 3.
What do you think about
back dimples? I've never thought about this. You've really brought a lot of things to the table.
What do you think about tattoos and piercings, specifically the bull nose ring?
The bull nose ring is not my favorite, but it is a thing. But I would not say it's something that I'm like, oh, okay.
That's the one thing I think can take a girl who's a 10 to like a 6. It's just like,
it's pretty strong.
I'm not a fan of piercings or tattoos. What do you think about tattoos?
I think tattoos are pretty cool. There's a line there. I mean, this is coming from someone who has no tattoos, so I'm not probably the best person to talk to about that. I do think some tattoos can look cool, especially if they have a meaning to it, especially if there's a reason why they got it. If it's like tattoos over most of the person's body, that's different from me. I wouldn't be able to do that.
Would you date someone that had a live, laugh, love tattoo?
A live, laugh, love. I wouldn't date someone who has that on their wall when you walk in. Or wears a shirt that has that. That's where I'll definitely draw the line.
I have a friend that's really into girls with tattoos. I don't think he has any, but it's tattoos and like ear piercings are fine, but I've gotten kind of used to like a small like diamond
Like a
nose
stud
ring.
kind of, yeah.
But then like the other stuff, it's like I
It's too
can't
much
do
for
it.
you. Okay.
What do you have?
Well,
What's
it's like
your,
a mullet. You're really brave wearing something that's repulsive to most of humanity, and was a sign when we were little that a child was probably being mistreated at home when they had one. So, you wearing it as a mid-30s is different
I
level.
know a guy who calls my hair a moulet.
It gives it a little extra.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
People who just talk about themselves and don't ask questions. That's a pretty big
That's
one.
a big one for you.
Yeah.
I hope I'm asking a lot of questions.
Well,
I
you
mean,
have
I
to
got
in
you
this
back
form.
for a second one, but I mean that was only because you really needed someone to sub for your
For a miracle
for your
league, yeah,
team.
I felt guilty.
Yeah. What kind of vehicle do you drive?
I drive a Scion XB. It's silver, gray.
It is a nice looking vehicle. Scion's such a weird vehicle to choose. How did you choose a Scion? I mean,
Chose it
Scion's
'cause-
not even made anymore, right?
No. Which they're great cars. I had never had a new car. At that time, I had never had a car that was in the same decade that I was living in. But I knew I was going to need probably a pretty new car, even though I knew it wasn't like the best investment because they lose value, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I was moving from Tennessee to Pennsylvania. My car had broken down a few months before, so I just rode the bus until I was going to move. My goal was, okay, after I move and get to Pennsylvania, so I'm going to take like a moving truck, so I don't need a car yet. Once I get there, I'm going to get a new car. I'm going to lease a car, lease it for 3 years, and during that leasing time, try to build my credit up as high as I can. So then I'll pay off the rest of the car with a pretty good interest rate.
Did that work?
Yeah, it worked out pretty good. I should have done more due diligence to get my credit up higher, but it did go up some, so I got a lower interest rate. If I had tried to just buy the car outright at the beginning, it would have been worse off for me. So it helped me to lease, which was awesome because then I had a car that I could totally depend on to make a 10-hour trip 4 or 5 times a year, coming down to Tennessee and back up. And the Scion, good gas mileage, fun to drive, super comfortable, and I could afford it.
Didn't you let your insurance lapse at one point for like a day, and in that day you got into an accident? Is this a real story, or is this another false memory that I've had?
I got into an accident and I had like my registration was expired and I went to jail for 6 hours. But
Oh,
that's something
I didn't know
different,
that.
probably. Yeah, but that was also because I had a failure to appear from a previous ticket months before, which was speeding and not having my license with me while driving when I was going to help a friend drive down for a wedding.
I've
And
never
then
had a
they had to
speeding
drive.
ticket in my life.
Really?
I did get pulled over for expired plates once, and the cop told me it's $100. You can pay it now, or you need to. I had to go.
Pay it
somewhere.
now, like pay it to him as he pulled you over?
Yeah, my ATM was across the street, and he wouldn't let me go. I had to have $100 in my pocket, apparently. Like I said, well, my ATM is like right there. I like right in plain sight, and he said, "Well, no, you can't leave your vehicle." I said, "Well, I'm pulled over on the side of the road."
I've never heard someone say, "Oh, you just pay me right now."
It was a small town. I have some friends that got busted with weed, and they knew exactly how many ounces, and the cops, of course, only returned they only reported half of what they said they had confiscated. It was bearing springs, probably, but, meth head cops.
Interesting.
Well,
Okay,
all
your
right.
wife's home. We better wrap this up. Better get done with this, Derek.
All right. Well, I think I learned some things about podcasting. Thank you for coming back for part 2. You want to end with anything, or do I just hit stop record?
Yeah, the last time I did something on the fly, you didn't accept it, which was a jingle that I thought was pretty good. So I've got nothing for you this time, other than just, It could have been worse.
All right, well, Shawnessey Cargile of the Normal Life Podcast, thank you. I'll see you next time.